Assistant Treasurer Stephen Jones joins us live. Now, Stephen, you must be relieved that the cash rate was, that Dr Lowe pressed pause on the cash rate yesterday.
Look, very welcome news for Australian households and businesses. We're not out of the woods, but it does appear on the data that's available that the interest rate, the inflation peak is behind us. We still have a lot of work to do. We'll be ensuring that from our position in the managing of the budget, we're not making a difficult situation worse by ensuring that we keep downward pressure on inflation. But of course, there'll be a lot of relieved households and businesses who've been struggling with cost of living increases that they haven't faced yet another interest rate rise.
I'm sure you're going to say that the RBA is correctly independent here, but are you hoping it continues to hold or even cut rates by the end of the year for some added relief to those mortgage owners?
The Reserve Bank, as you say, Pete, it's independent.
Yep.
It's got a mandate to manage inflation using monetary policy. We're not out of the woods yet on inflation, but I think if you read the statement that was issued yesterday, they've got an eye to what's going on around the rest of the world, and they understand that households and businesses are struggling with both interest rate rises and cost of living increases, and we've got to be mindful. Getting the balance right is the juggle that they're dealing with. Okay. From our point of view, we've got to focus on fiscal policy, and that's the big job we've got ahead of us between now and the budget in a few weeks' time.
Just looking across the aisle, Stephen, the Libs meeting today to come up with their response to the Voice. Susan Lee, a little tight-lipped on details. It kind of feels like they're going to oppose it, but we don't know for sure. I'm speculating there. But what do you make of the Libs meeting today?
I hope you're wrong. Frankly, Pete, I hope you're wrong. I hope they've learnt their lesson from Aston. I hope they're listening to what the majority of states and majority of Australians are saying, is that they want this to happen. It's about respect, it's about recognition, it's about consultation. It's not the big scary thing that some people are trying to make it out to be. It's a very modest and important reform to our constitution. If Peter Dutton leads his party down the path of opposition, he'll have proved that he's been against the will of the Australian people on climate change. He's been against the will of the Australian people on providing energy price relief. He'll show that he's been against the will of the Australian people on rebooting manufacturing, against the will of Australian people on the government taking action in the housing crisis, and against the will of the Australian people on the Voice to Parliament. It's time for Peter Dutton to stop looking at the past and start looking to the future and dragging his party into the future. We need a modern Liberal Party, not one that is fighting last year's, last century's battles.
Would you be prepared to wind back any amendments?
Look, the important thing about the question that we put before Parliament last week is it arose out of a deep and meaningful consultation with legal experts and with Indigenous First Nation representatives. The Liberals and Peter Dutton were invited to engage with that process. They chose mostly not to. It's a bit rich for them to come along 10 minutes after and say, oh, we've had some new ideas, when they were invited to be a part of the process all along. It's rich, it's ingenuous, and it's against the will of the majority of Australian people.
So that's a no?
It's not for me to make decisions. It'll be made by the Prime Minister, the Attorney General, in fact, the entire of Cabinet. But I'm just pointing out, for Peter Dutton to come up after the matter has gone into the Parliament, after he's been invited for 9 months to be a part of a process and say, I've had some fresh ideas, is a bit rich. It smacks of somebody who's not genuine.